Hi and welcome to C++ for C programmers. This is the first video in this series and I will begin showing you how to move from C to C++ mainly for the purposes of competitive programming. In this lesson I'll just write a first program in C and then convert it into C++, primarily to show you how to use vectors, which you can use as a substitute for arrays. So let's get started. Just a simple C program including the standard IO, and what this program will do is it will take as input 10 numbers and as output it will give you their sum. So let's allocate space for the 10 numbers in an array and create our variables. Okay, and obviously get the numbers as input and finally print them as well. And of course sum them. So hopefully you followed all that. Just reading the numbers as input here from input, and here we are adding them to the sum, and finally just printing it. So now this is a program written in C, but you can see the extension of the file is .cpp, myprog.cpp. So it is valid C++ as well, and I'll show this to you. I'll just run this program in C++ in code blocks, and let's just okay, I've clearly made an error here. Okay, I've printed AFI instead of the sum. Okay, so print sum and yeah, build and run, and hopefully this should print 55 now. Yeah, and it does. Just run that once again. You can see 55 is printed as output. So now let's get started with converting this program to C++. So the first thing is, in C++ you don't use C standard IO, you use IOstream. And since we use IOstream and scanf and printf are not our preferred methods of taking input in C++, we use streams for taking in input. The cin, we use cin and cout as the standard input and standard output. So first we need to write a few other lines using namespace std. Just include this line in all your programs. What it does is it basically tells the C++ compiler where stuff like cin and cout, which we'll be using, in which namespace they can be found. If you didn't understand that, it's okay, just remember to use this line using namespace std in your programs. And we'll also include the header file for vectors, since that's what we are going to be using instead of arrays. So here we declare a vector a instead of array a, and you can see what goes between these angle brackets. It's basically a template. You can assume that it creates a vector, basically a list that has elements all of this type. So you could even have a vector of char, or C++ defines a boolean type for you, so you could have vector bool. But for our purposes we are going to be using a vector of int, and we need to read the input. And what we do is from cin, basically from standard input, that is the input for C or C++, we read into, so this is saying get it from cin into an integer. Okay, the integer I just declared a. Let's give it a more meaningful name. Let's say num. And now what we need to do is we need to push num into the vector A. So the vector A has no memory right now allocated to it. If we did something like cout, so this is just the the opposite of cin. Instead of reading from cin, we are going to push something to cout. So let's call the method size on a, and so this says whatever value that a.size returns, put that into cout, and I'll just comment out the rest just to show you that this works. So here we have um, the program, and this should print 0, and you can see that it prints 0. So right now there is no memory allocated to a, there are no elements in a, and we have to insert num into a. So the way to do that is you do a dot push back num. If you tried to do something like a of I equal to num, this would fail because there is no memory allocated to a. There's a of I refers to nothing right now. But once we do a dot push back num, you'll see that the size of the vector is increased, and I'll just print that out once again, and you'll see that the size should now be 10. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, just our input, and you can see it prints out 10, which is the size of our vector. So now we just need to sum it into a, and this works fine. Now a of I refers to these numbers, so now it's fine. And finally we just push sum into the standard output. So here we are sending sum to the standard output and a new line. So instead of using \n, we could do that as well. So this will add another new line, or let's put it before sum so you can see the difference. So this adds a new line, and then we'll print sum and then another new line. You could also join these things in just one line, so you could write that in one line like this. Okay, each time you need to put something to cout, you just put the double left angle bracket, and it will be inserted into cout. So this will print blank line followed by sum followed by the blank line, where sum's value will be 55. Yeah, some of the first 10 numbers, or actually whatever we give an input, but we will give the first 10 numbers as input. So hopefully this will run without any errors. Yeah, and here this will print 55, yeah, with the empty line before and after. So, and you could, endl is the way of printing a new line in C++. So this ends our first program. Hopefully you learned something from it, and in the next program we'll look at other methods that you can call on vectors and why vectors are more useful. Thanks for watching.